So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today, you have me again giving you another solo podcast. And today, I wanted to talk to you about unspoken expectations, or more fully, how unspoken expectations lead to premeditated resentments. Now, what am I talking about here? Now, this is a concept, not mine, that I believe plays out pretty much everywhere across your life. And I think it can be one of the fundamental things that, if left unsaid and bubbling along underneath, can lead to a lot of discontentment, unhappiness, and a lot of that friction and drama you might feel in your life. And the situation where it can feel like everyone's coming at you. And I think it stems from unspoken expectations, because the point behind this is, if we have things that we want and need, and we aren't able to communicate them with the people we love or people at work, and we're not adequately communicating that, we can then end up resenting the other person, the situation, for not being able to do those things that we need or being able to get what we want. And so you can go through life feeling pretty resentful and angry about the situation. But the key part here is that unspoken bit, because the reality is, if you aren't adequately communicating what you feel, what you want, where you're at within a situation to another human, it's not their problem. It's yours, because you aren't speaking about it. So you might make a commitment or in your own head to do something. Don't communicate that with the wider world. You're not able to do that because something else has happened or someone else is doing something. And then you end up pissed off about that because you can't do it. But the reality is you weren't able to communicate it in the first place. So what's really going on here? And for me, I think it's really important, because when we get a handle on this and we can start to communicate what we want and need fairly, life feels good. But also it means that you're giving other people a truer, more honest version of yourself. Because if you're constantly compromising what you want and need, not really saying what you want and need, you're giving the world and everyone else a shitter, diluted, non-true version of yourself. But more importantly, you end up getting pissed off at everyone else because you're not getting what you want and need. But they don't know, because you're not communicating it. And for me, the key bit is you being able to communicate it. So what's going on here? I think probably an easy way to explain this is to highlight it with an example, a live one experienced by me, right? So in the morning when I get up 5:30 usually. The kids are still generally asleep. They might be awake a bit, but they typically stay in bed till 6 o'clock. So I come down at 5:30, do my usual routine, which is chin a load of water, eat my vitamins, chuck myself in the ice bath, bit of meditation. That works very well for me, keeps me calm and grounded. And then at 6 o'clock, the kids come down, and so does my wife, Kate. And at 6, Kate will then go and do a workout, typically for about an hour at home, or nips to the gym, usually at home. And I will then have all the kids, right? Then at 7 p.m, I will usually go off to either the gym or jiu-jitsu, right? And that's how our mornings work pretty much 6 to 7 days a week, right? That's how we fit it in. And that's our little routine. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's just what we do and it works for us. So what does this all have to do with unspoken expectations? So when I go to jiu-jitsu in the morning, I leave the house at 7, right? But jiu-jitsu actually starts at 7. So it means that I'm usually 10 or 15 minutes late for every session. And that's been going on for ages, and it's just part of what I do. The guys there don't mind. They joke about it a bit, but I'm always late. But it's so I can facilitate Kate doing her workout and her bits, and it's fair, and that's the balance we use, and it's a compromise we have to make right now. My 2 older kids will probably be old enough for me to leave them in the house whilst Kate's doing the workout in the garden pod. The little one's 4, and she's a maniac, so we can't. So that's just how life is right now. And that's how it works. However, this is a little while ago now, probably about a year ago. I was just coaching someone about unspoken expectations being premeditated resentments, and talking like this with my clients, right? And what it means. So one morning, Kate's in the office pod doing her workout. I'm with the kids, and it's getting to like 5 to 7. I was like, she still looks like she's doing a workout. What's she doing? I'm like, bloody hell, she hasn't finished. So I'm getting myself ready so I can leave at 7, and it's 7 o'clock, and she still hasn't finished. And it looks like she's still fully in a workout. I'm like, fucking hell, what's she doing? Like in a chuntering. Gets to like 5 past and she still hasn't finished. And I've got my bike out, I've got my bag on, and my earphones in ready to go, and she still hasn't finished. It gets to like almost 10 past, and I was like, what's she playing at? Why hasn't she finished? Does she not know what I need to do? And I need to go to jiu-jitsu. I'm going to be late, because it was a jiu-jitsu morning. Doesn't really matter with the gym, but it was a jiu-jitsu morning. All this is trunching on internally. Kate finally finishes, gets some more, nearly like 15 maybe. And she comes through, and she's like, you all right? I'm like, haven't communicated anything. I'm just being a sort of mardy prick, a bit grumpy, sort of snapping at her, a bit short and snappy. And I go, well, I was meant to go to jiu-jitsu and I shouldn't even bother now. What's the point? And I'm going to be late. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Like, I didn't know. It's just, you've done your workout. And just rude and just snappy. I still haven't communicated the situation. And then I was like, well, so why don't you just go, well, I'll go anyway. And what's the point? I'm going to be late. Well, I'm just going to go around and just storm out, slam the door. Not a very nice interaction on my part. Got to jiu-jitsu, I had a session, was a bit later, and then checked my phone after, and Kate had just messaged and said, that was really unpleasant and nice. What was all that about? And I was just like, for fuck's sakes. Like, I've just coached about unspoken expectations, right, to a client the day before, and I am behaving like a petulant child and doing exactly that thing for Kate, right? So what had happened there is I had never once told Kate, actually, I don't know why, but I hadn't, that I really needed to finish bang on 7 on a jiu-jitsu morning so I can get there. And although it's a bit late, get the most out of the session. Kate wasn't aware of any of that. I'd never once communicated that to her. She just thought, she finishes at 7. It's kind of what Luke does and he goes to jiu-jitsu. She had no idea that I was turning up late every day, right? And that's not her fault. And it's not her problem. That's mine because I hadn't communicated that. And so I hadn't said that. So internally, I'm annoyed. Does she not know that I've got to leave at 7? Da-da-da? No, she doesn't. She doesn't know any of that. Nor should she, because she ain't a fucking mind reader. That's my job to tell her. And so all of that was going on internally. I'm fucked off and pissed off at her. She's got absolutely no idea why, rightly so, because I've never communicated it. And so I end up acting like a complete prick to her, short, snappy, a bit rude, and making her feel rubbish. And actually, it's nothing to do with her. Now, I could have doubled down on that and kept going and gone, oh, well, fuck you, yeah, you should know, and all the rest of it. But actually, I become the author of my own chaos there. I make the entire situation worse, and I shouldn't, because, like, Kate's does absolutely nothing wrong, right? We've got like a sort of unspoken agreement about she usually finishes at 7 to get off, but I haven't said on those mornings it's really important for me to get there a bit, as early as possible, even though it's late. So I messaged her, said, sorry, I was behaving like a petulant child. What I really should have communicated with him is on a jiu-jitsu morning, like, ideally I need to leave bang on 7 so I can get the most out of having a session, even though I'm a little bit late. She's like, absolutely fine, just tell me. And now she tries to finish a little bit earlier to accommodate. Now, that's a live example. It doesn't seem like a big example, right? But in that scenario, because I hadn't communicated something very simple to Kate, I ended up acting like a dickhead. It upsets her. And that could have created a load of drama that could have bled on. Luckily, I was able to catch myself and go, what are you playing at? And explain myself, and we agreed it. And then actually, once I'd communicated exactly what I wanted and needed, we came to an agreement, right? Without that communication part, Kate isn't a mind reader. She isn't going to understand what I want and need if I can't communicate it with her. And although that might seem like a small domestic example, in my experience, loads of that plays out at work, at home, with your kids, with your friends, everywhere. But the insidious thing is, you can start going around thinking everyone's a bastard. They're not out to get me. Do they not understand? Or maybe you've got someone on your team that's not performing as well. Do they not understand? And in my experience when I'm coaching guys, they haven't always, most of the time, been totally explicit about what's wanted and needed and what the behavior is. And so once we do that and communicate that, then we're on a level playing field. I think the issue is sometimes it can feel a bit uncomfortable having maybe a challenging conversation, being totally honest with what you want. But actually, if you're able to do that, A, you get to a better situation with what you want and need. But B, that other person gets to understand where you're at and what you want and need. People aren't fucking mind readers. Oh, they should know. Why should they? No one should know. It's not your job. It's not their job to know what's going on in your head. It's your job to be able to adequately communicate it. And so when we're able to do that, people understand and you can come to a compromise. Now, if Kate had gone, fuck you, there's no way, I'm going to finish later anyway, even if that's what she was thinking, which it wasn't, well, we still need to have the conversation because that's bubbling around underneath anyway. So it needs to be addressed. And so you cannot control someone else's reaction if you're starting to ask them and talk to them about something that you want and need. You can only control yourself. But if you don't actually express it clearly, it's not the other person's fault if it isn't working or needed. It's yours. Like the same can apply at work, right? 9 o'clock at night, an email comes through. Oh my God, this client's email me, what a prick. Blah, 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 blah. Did you have to reply? Have you ever told that client not to message you at that time? No, usually is the answer. Well, how's about you tell them that actually, just so you know, if you message me after this time at night, I am not going to answer my emails. But do they not know I'm so busy and stressed and running around and messaging? Well, again, if you haven't communicated that or set any clear boundaries, that's on you, not them. And this is where you can get that situation where sometimes if you're busy and stressed, got lots going on, it can feel like everyone's out to get you. there's a phrase I love. If you meet 20 cunts in a day, you're the cunt. Because it's not everyone else, it's you. And in my experience in those scenarios, we peel the onion back, there's a lot of this going on. We're not adequately communicating what we want, what we need, what's important, or even be able to have a challenging conversation. If someone said something you don't like or agree with, just swallow it and go, oh, no, it needs to be challenged. Now, the important thing here is this isn't carte blanche to be a dickhead. Oh, I just say what I want to do what I say. No, that's bollocks either. It's not. You're not allowed to walk around being a prick just because you want to communicate what you want and need. But the nuance here is if you're not able to adequately communicate where you're at, what you need, challenge people when you don't agree with something that's being said or a situation, you just keep compromising yourself. And that's also like Chinese water torture for your self-esteem because you're never adequately saying who you are, what you need, and what's important to you. And if you don't do that, you constantly compromise. So it can create quite an insidious situation. Now, in my experience, if we start to be able to have these conversations, we communicate what we want and need, we're being honest about where we're at and what we feel about a situation, life actually feels richer and better because all the people in your life get a real honest version of you, but you're not constantly compromising what you want and need for other things or what you assume those other people may want and need. Because that's the people-pleasing aspect as well, which can come up a lot. Well, I think they want that, so I'm going to say that to compromise. You've got no fucking idea what someone else wants. And how dare you even think? How are you to know? If you can just communicate what you want and need and speak to that, then you can have a conversation that's fair about that. But the key thing there is, if you're always just trying to say what you think other people want or compromising what you want, no one's ever getting the real you. And so actually you're robbing that person of an opportunity to help you and give you what you want and need as well. And so if you take this concept of unspoken expectations, premeditated resentments, and just think about it deeply, I guarantee you, even for the most zen, calm, happy person, right, there'll be elements of this bubbling around within your life. And if we can start to peel back the lid and address that, for me, life starts to feel richer, better, more engaging because your life is all of those interactions. That is your life. You're with people all the time, your kids, your wife, your business, your team, your friends. And if there's a level of compromise and you're not really talking about what you want to need at all those levels, that can feel pretty shit and you don't feel good. So getting a handle on this for me is really, really important. There's another phrase, you've got to clean your side of the street first. And so you've got to be in control of what you want to need. You've got to understand yourself to be able to adequately communicate that. Now, one of the rubs here is to be in the sort of state where you're able to objectively think about your part in it, what you want and need, adequately communicate it calmly, really listen to the other person as well. If you're stressed, overweight, running around like a blue-ass fly, no habits and boundaries, no discipline in your life, being in that state to recognize these situations and take a step back and be objective and ask and communicate clearly what you want, that can be difficult, right? Because when you're in the headspace I just described, it does feel like the world's out to get you and it's against you. But in those situations, I think you can end up making it worse because if you make an assumption about what someone else wants and needs and thinks, then you start to behave based off that. Like, you're probably going to behave in quite a negative way. And so not only you've got no idea what that person wants and needs anyway, you made an assumption about what they want and think. Well, then your behavior starts to be compromised as a byproduct of that. And so you can probably act like more of a dickhead. And so you seem like more of a dickhead. So that person will treat you like more of a dickhead, right? Whereas if you'd just gone, actually, this is where it's at and this is what I need, you can then have an open conversation. Now, if that person reacts in a bad way to it and whatever else, well, you can't control that and nor should you. But at least you've been able to communicate where you're at. The more we can be honest and transparent about what we want and need throughout life, in my experience, the better life feels. But as I said there, being able to do that is predicated on how you're feeling about yourself as a day-to-day basis. And I think as an emergent property, we want to feel grounded, happy, content, healthy, fit, sharp, energized, right? And when you're in that kind of place, you can then start to unpick some of these threads around these unspoken expectations and start to really communicate what you want. Now, I'm not saying the example I gave earlier around, Kate, I'm a saint, I get this right all the time. No, I still fuck it up. We all do. But the more we can be conscious and on top of it and see it, the better. And part of it's about recognizing, oh, right, well, I didn't shower myself in glory there. I was the one at fault. Well, here's an opportunity to correct it and have that difficult conversation, talk it through and get to a better place. Now, arguably, because that happened, I'm not defending my behavior. I'd rather not have behaved like that. It actually got to a better place for me in case we both understand where we're at and what we want and need. But that could have happened in the first place by me just saying. Do you know what, Kate? In the mornings when this is happening at 7, it's really important for me. I'll leave at 7. Is that cool? Of course it is. That was all the conversation needed to be. And if Kay said no, well, then we go, well, maybe I don't think that's fair, or well, how can I compromise something else somewhere else to give you what you need? You see what I mean? But then you get to a fair conversation about what's going on. But I guarantee you that'll be playing out at work, at home, with difficult clients, all of it. And it's more about what's your part and how well are you communicating. And in my experience, we never truly as explicit as we need to be. But when we start to do that, again, caveated with it, not a carte blanche to be a dickhead and just kick down metaphorical doors and tell it how it is, but just to be fair with where you're at, in my experience, life feels much better. So, challenge for you all this week, if you're listening, is think about a situation where you can see that playing out, where you're not being truly honest. You are compromising what you want and need. Have the conversation, honestly, transparency. Just say how you feel and be clear about it and see where it goes. And it can feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but my experience, once you do one or two of those and you recognize that, you're like, right, laser beam, where else is this going off in life? Where can I address this? Now, this sort of stuff is exactly what I work on in my coaching programs, in the 1% Blueprint and the following program in the collective. And we work around all this kind of stuff, whilst also supporting it with the good habits and behaviors for ourselves. So we're showing up well to be in that objective headspace. But you don't need to be in a program to do that. You can just do what I've just said now and have a crack at it. So give it a go. And if you are interested in talking to me about how I can help with all this kind of stuff, drop me a note in the DMs. We've got another gent coming on next week to talk about his experience, and there'll be talk around this kind of stuff as well. And if I don't speak to you before, have a great week. Cheers, guys.